What's up, guys? We are live. We got Damian joining us from School of Attraction. Thank you for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, Alex.
Anytime. So it was actually one of my subscribers that turned me on to your content. I'll admit, I'm not usually as familiar with your stuff as I am with some of the other content. So give a little background. What do you do, and what is School of Attraction all about?
Yeah, so I mean, look, the short background is I got into dating coaching in a bit of a circuitous route. I started off doing a lot of men's work, um, which is kind of the study of what it means to be a man, masculinity, understanding how you relate to women, how you relate to men, how you grow up as a man, and dealing with some of your crap, that you have as a teenage male growing up. And I did that off the back of some really horrible relationships with women that left me a bit angry at women. I was a bit of a human wrecking ball. And as I got involved in that, my quality of life improved significantly. My relationship to women improved a lot, as well as my relationship to myself and my self-esteem. And as I was going through a lot of this, self-development process, a couple of my friends, this is way, way, way back in the early 2000s, were like, dude, come out with us. We're doing this thing called pickup artistry. We go out to bars and clubs. We meet girls. We do all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, sure. Yeah, man, that sounds like fun. I'll head out with you. So I started hanging out with them, and it was really interesting because what I saw, what I was witnessing was a lot of guys who were, sure, some of them were picking up girls and getting laid and having fun. But what was really interesting is for a lot of the guys I was meeting and seeing as I went out, their whole self-esteem was hinged against their ability to get laid. Right. I was like, if I'm not getting laid in the last 2 weeks, I'm starting to feel shitty about myself. Right. I'm starting to doubt myself as a guy. And I saw a lot of this wild swing in confidence levels amongst guys. And it was interesting because it was quite counter to what I had learned, what I experienced with my men's work, self-development, and what I could see was a lot of guys were being taught, look, just adopt a narcissistic mindset, like adopt some of these mindsets of kind of, you're either a hunter or you're the hunted, and you get to decide which, so you might as well be the hunter.
Where was that being taught?
Oh man, that was everything. I mean, the game for a couple of years by this point. And that was really all the rage, that mindset behind, if a girl's really hot, you got to knock her down a few pegs. The mindset behind, you got to be in charge. You got to be the one knocking her off balance so that you've got control. It was very control focused. I mean, in there, it's not that all control is bad, but it's that mindset of you're either in control or you're weak. And that very, power or weak way of viewing the world that was very popular at that point. And so I was feeling very inspired by that point to say, well, hey, there's got to be a better way to be meeting and attracting women, right? It's not only the asshole who gets the chicks. The nice guy is not nice. He's like passively trying to manipulate people by trying to suck up to them. That's not nice. That's just manipulative, by another word,
Right.
but they're not the only two options for a man, and so that was my inspiration for getting the School of Attraction started. So we, as a dating coaching company, there's a large focus on building your own self-esteem as a human being and attracting women from, I guess, what I call an emotionally healthy standpoint.
So what would you say are like some of the key tenets of School of Attraction? I know that's kind of like a tough, complex question, but like,
It's kind of like, how deep is a hole? I mean, one of the big things is you're never trying to misrepresent who you are. Because the idea is that every time you try to misrepresent who you are, even if that gets you results, it lowers your self-esteem because you keep consistently reinforcing, I wasn't good enough to get her as I am. I have to be something else.
Does that include white lies?
I mean, white lies are a very complicated thing. It depends on what you call a white lie, right? Intention is critical. Yeah.
Like, let's say, for example, you're on a date with a girl, and let's say, I don't know, let's say you're now working for the summer and you're starting a job in the fall and you're going to be an engineer, right?
Yeah.
Girl asks you, what do you do? You could be like, I'm an engineer. You could be like, I'm unemployed, right? A white lie would be to say you're an engineer.
Yeah. So it's the intention there, right? So, I mean, in that situation, I would, be saying to the guy, well, why wouldn't you just say, hey, I'm starting as I just finished studying. I'm starting as an engineer in the summer or in the fall or whatever you said.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, because to me, the intention is if you're doing it because you don't think you're good enough as you are at exactly this moment, that's where you start to it's dangerous for you. Nothing about the women. We're talking about your own emotional health. You know,
Okay, I guess
one little white lie won't harm you, but it's when we make a habit
like a
of it.
better example. Yeah, that you're right. That
Yeah.
it is much simpler to say that. A better example would be like, let's say like you spend your afternoon banging a chick, and then you go on a date in the evening, and the chick is like, "Hey, so what did you do today?" Like the truth is, you spend it, banging a
All
chick.
right.
Yeah. Like what about in a situation like that? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, look, in those situations, what I'll tend to do is um, try to avoid lying. Not because it's not a moral call. It's not like lying is bad. Period. I think there's certainly times when lying is okay. But if a girl asks me that, I'll try to say, "Oh, I'll hang out with a friend," and leave it at that. I just try to avoid it. It sounds really weird, but yeah, I try to avoid it as a thing because I find it's a slippery slope
No, I
when you
definitely
try to
say,
make a habit of it.
yeah, no, I
And
definitely
it's not a
see.
moral call, but
Yeah, I generally avoid lying as well. Also,
mm.
but okay. So what are some of the other big tenets? I know we kind of focus on this one.
Yeah. So, look, some of the other big ones are, you don't have to be the most confident guy in the room. That's one of the other big things that I feel is often overrepresented. If you want the most confident woman in the world, you need to be the most confident guy in the world. But broadly speaking, we attract people who are a mirror of our general self-esteem levels, right? So, there are plenty of women who I know who are very attractive and have very, very, very shitty self-esteems. Um,
Mhm.
and, I often find that you should be on a mission to improve your self esteem rather than trying to pretend to be something you're not. And I found that, especially the daytime, if you approach women during the day, it's better for a guy who is nervous and shy to be like, yeah, I like this is kind of random for me. I'm really new to this, than for him to pretend to be super confident and do a really shitty job.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
And so it's around that stuff. It's around people thinking you can't admit to weakness. I think there's a difference between neediness and vulnerability that a lot of guys struggle with because I think a lot of men come into this having been needy in the past and then hating themselves because there's a lot of shame around being needy with a girlfriend. There's a lot of shame with being needy around a girl you got a crush on. And I think as men, we come into this with such a self-repulsion around being needy and the pain that we've suffered having been needy in the past that we then apply that to all forms of vulnerability. Because vulnerability can be really sexy. Like when you own vulnerability, when you're like, yeah, this is my shit, but whatever, it's mine and I own it. That can be really, really powerful, especially when you want higher confidence women.
Well,
And again,
I think there's a difference between vulnerability and neediness. I think those two they can be tied in together, but I think they're quite different. So let's kind of explore self-esteem. So what are some let's say you do have a guy with low self-esteem. How would you help him overcome that? What are some practical tips you would give that guy?
Yeah. I mean, it starts with the simple stuff. The simple stuff is we often think that the goal is you try to improve your self-esteem, then you do the things that you've been holding out on doing until you feel confident enough to do them. And life doesn't work that way, right? Confidence isn't not feeling scared, right? And this is probably something a lot of people talk about, dating coaches too. But confidence isn't not feeling scared. Confidence is just not allowing the fear to stop you doing what you want to do in life, right?
Sure.
And that's what confidence does, right? So confidence is willing to take those steps. So it's not a matter of waiting to be confident. That's a mistake a lot of guys make. I feel insecure plenty of the time. I just don't let the insecurity stop me from taking an action, from doing the things that I want in life.
Sure. Although I would say I somewhat agree with that and somewhat disagree because, for example, let's say you're nervous to approach a girl. You can approach that girl, you can push through that, but still not be confident in your approach, right? You can still be very nervous. So I always define confidence as belief in yourself. Like belief in yourself. You can still be, I don't know if you can be nervous and be confident. You can,
well, the way I see it is, yes. I mean, you're kind of right there, right? I mean, there's two sides to confidence. Right? One is your faith that I can handle this. I don't know how. It's kind of weird, and I feel strange about it. But I believe that I can handle it no matter what happens. Yeah. And the other one is I know exactly how this is done, and I feel good about doing it. They're almost two different things, and I feel like you can't always feel super confident about everything. Right? Whenever you do something new, it's going to feel strange and awkward and unusual. But you can always have faith in yourself. You can always believe that, hey, I'm nervous as shit talking to this girl and I'm probably going to screw it up, but I can handle that, and I'm willing to do it in the name of, the more I do this, the less I'm going to feel this way. And I feel like the guy who feels that is in many ways more confident than the guy who's cocky because he grew up as an attractive guy and hasn't really had to face rejection in the same way someone else has. You know what I mean? And so he never had to learn to have that faith in himself. He's just good in that one area. Does that sort of make sense? But because I think I agree with you for the most part.
Yeah, it does. But I kind of want to return back to the self-esteem issue because it is very common. There's a lot of guys in the community who do have very low self-esteem. There's a lot of dating coaches who have low self-esteem.
Yeah.
So like, what are let's try to like kind of pull our heads together and come up with some like practical things because I've never thought about that. Like, what are some like blanket things I can do to help someone with self-esteem? But like, what's your kind of like take on that? Like, what are some things we can give the guys?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for the record, I think there are like 30 things. Self-esteem is such a complicated thing, right? There's many facets to what contributes to our self-esteem, whether it's childhood trauma, it's our relationship to failure, it's our relationship to shame and how we process shame, how deeply we bury shame, how much we're willing to be who we really are. So I think there's a lot of aspects, but I'll throw some of the ones that are meaningful to me in this moment. Let's do that because I'll be the most passionate about the things that, we explore different parts of ourselves and then we pull in. One of the big things for me right now that's really been a boost to my own self-esteem. My self-esteem is constantly trying to improve, right? I'm never perfect at any point in time. One of the big ones for me has been really being far more open to share my shit with people and not trying to pretend to be perfect. The more I have done that in my life of late, the more confident I feel with people I don't know yet. Because the more I feel like there's less that I'm trying to hide from them. And that's been a big one for me. In other words, with friends, with family, with things like that, I've been a lot more, I've really worked hard not to drop bravado. That's what I've worked hard to do. Right? To drop the bullshit, to drop the stuff of this is the Damian show, right? This is the mask that I wear. And really working hard to drop that. Because, when I've been on some amazing dates where I've just been a lot less confident, right? Like putting on a lot less of that show. And I'm feeling like I'm with some women, not with all, because some women, want that show. But I've had some incredible connections on some of these dates where it's just been like intense really quickly because I've just been so real. And I felt like I have less to prove all of a sudden. It's been really liberating from a self-esteem standpoint.
Let me think. What are some big ones top of my head? I would say getting comfortable with all different aspects of your personality and your quirks, and almost like practicing being yourself and seeing that nothing bad happens and that people actually like you for you. So not putting on a charade or charade. The more you're putting on like a mask or charade, I think the worse you're hurting your self-esteem. And the more you can drop that, the better your self-esteem will be because you're basically every time you put on a mask. So let's take let's take Rollo Tomasi. This is hypothetical, but I would bet 95% chance this is true. Rollo he goes about his day on there and he's like, women, misogyny. Then he goes home to his wife and he's like, honey, I cooked dinner. Right? That's not you, Rollo. You overprepared the chicken. You bad man. Sorry, babe. Right? So like, I'm having some fun with this, but like that's like that kind of stuff. That's not good for your self-esteem. It's like, but the more you can be yourself, not put on a show, and get accepted for it, I think the more your self-esteem increases because you prove to your subconscious that it's okay to be you. Because I know that, like, for example, with me personally, I moved to America when I was 7. I didn't really speak the language much. And we moved around a lot when I was a kid. And so I always felt like I had to like kind of put on a little bit of an act because I felt like an outsider. So I was always trying to like win people over and get people to like me, which paradoxically meant I could never be myself, which thus, hurt my self-esteem. So that would be like a big one off the top of my head.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like you just said in a more eloquent way what I was saying. It's that drop that mask, but it's hard, right? It's really hard to be you because many of us are so used to. I mean, I had the same thing. I had no friends in primary school. I didn't come from another country, but I just had no friends. For whatever reason, and then the way I learned to have friends in high school was to wear a mask and start kind of mimicking people in a sense. to be cool. And so I get that. I get that experience. One of the other big things that I think impacts people a lot more than they realize is when they focus on goals instead of values. And this sounds a little bit trite for a second, but if you hear me out for a second, a lot of guys focus on I need to get laid. I need to make out with as many girls as possible. I need to get these things. I need to work out, how to get there. Quick, stat. It's got to happen. And the difficulty is to get from here to there. There's a lot of pain that you have to go through a lot of the time. You got to deal with some rejection. You got to deal with not knowing what you did wrong and things being strange, or women putting you in tricky situations that you don't know how to interpret. And that is difficult. And so it can feel like a lot of pain to get a win, to feel like you did something productive. And I think guys struggle with that because then they don't give themselves permission often to feel good about themselves until they've attained the goal. Values, on the other hand, is something that I found to be really powerful. If you focus on, instead, I want to be someone who always goes for what he wants. I am someone who always wants to be constantly looking for what I can learn from every failure I have. These are my values as a human being in life, not just women, but in life. These are things that you get to do that today, right? You get to go out and have talked to some girls and then thought about what you can learn from those experiences. And if you did that, you've been the version of you want to be. And I find that the more people focus on being the versions of themselves they want to be by living by the values, rather than focusing, we all have goals. We all want to, meet a cute girl. We all want to be able to take her. We all want those things. But when guys focus instead on, this is the man I want to be, this is the way by which I want to live my life, because then I'd be proud of that guy, I feel like that's when our self-esteem starts to get more solid, because it also reinforces our sense of self. Yeah, and I find that the guys who focus on values rather than the end outcomes are the ones who tend to make it through. Because as well as I do, a lot of guys who go on this journey to be more successful with women, probably 70% of them drop out.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a big part of it.
I would think, in my opinion, you need a balance of both. I think external results and achievements are like I don't know. I hate saying the universe's way because it sounds gay as fuck, but I'll just say the universe's way of telling you that you're on the right track. Because I can see someone who's like too focused like on the values, like, dude, you're living in like a box, like, yeah, but according to so I could see, I think, but also obviously being too focused on just like external results can give you a lot of ups and downs, right? A lot of highs and lows. So I think that like a nice balance of both. But I think another thing that you kind of made me think of is going back to the values thing. Let's say your value is that, for example, me, someone who takes action, doesn't give up, right? And let's say I see a cute girl and maybe for whatever reason, the situation is difficult. At that point, I have a choice to make. I can either not do anything or I can go up and talk to her, right? And I think every time that you take action and that aligns with your values, your self-esteem grows a little bit. And every time you bitch out, it kind of goes down a little bit.
Yep.
So again, it's not a big deal if you like don't approach one girl, but I do think like kind of as you go about your day, just kind of overcoming your fears and kind of taking, I call it right action, is a good way to boost your self-esteem.
Yeah.
Because
sorry, go on.
I was gonna say there's nothing worse than the feeling of like going out and then you just bitch out, and then you don't do anything. I think a lot of guys have experience with that, and then you just feel horrible about yourself. You would have felt better if you approached a bunch of girls and got rejected than if you didn't do anything at all.
Yeah. The last thing, I think, one more point that I feel like I'd like to make around self-confidence. When you see someone who's self-confident, because a lot of guys kind of have this image of their head of what self-confidence looks like. And oftentimes I think guys, they make into something grander than it is. I often feel like self-confidence looks like a man or a woman who is so focused on what they're doing that that there's no space left for inner dialogue, like neurotic inner dialogue, right? And that's really all that self-confidence is in a large degree, because you know, when you see a guy, if you see a man walk into a room and he is just confidence, you know, what is he doing? All he's doing is just not thinking about all the things that could go wrong. He's just not thinking about what is she thinking? Does she really mean that? Does that guy like me? Or is he giving me the stink eye? Is that her boyfriend? Or better be? He's just not thinking about that. He's just doing. He's very much in the moment. He's very present. You know, and not listening to that dialogue that we all have that's going on in our heads. And I think anytime that I felt confident, that's what's occurring, you know, and I think there is a lot to be said about practiced presence, like learning to be present and learning to let thoughts come and go. You know, like meditation is a really big one, right? Being able to let thoughts come and go and not attach to them is, yeah, it's a little woo-woo, but I mean, it's quite a powerful practice, I find.
Yeah, I think that's a good long-term strategy. Short-term, though, I find that actually certain drugs can be effective. I don't mean like hardcore drugs, but like,
Yeah.
for example, Ritalin for me, low doses, which is like a mild stimulant, can make me very focused and actually will make my game better. Same thing with Kava, right? Or a very low dose of Klonopin or Phenibut, something like that. And those are two on the opposite sides of the spectrum, but it can actually turn down the dialogue. Totally. That's the reason a lot of people drink. I just personally don't really like alcohol that much, but that's the big reason for alcohol. It turns down that dialogue. That's really why it makes your game better, right? It turns that down and you're more present in the moment. But I think there's better substances than alcohol to become present. Obviously, it's not a good long-term strategy, but short-term, that can work.
Yeah, propranolol can work as well, by the way.
Which one?
Propranolol, it's a beta blocker. Because a lot of what we experience as anxiety is the stuff that we have around the chest, like the butterflies in the chest, the weird feeling, the sweating. Propranolol just blocks all that from happening.
Really? Is there any
so it doesn't stop the thoughts. It just, sorry?
Is there any side effects with that?
It's not saying you, well, because it's a beta blocker. So you take it and it works straight away. People use it for stage fright and stuff as well, quite a bit.
I've actually never taken a beta blocker. It's like one of the few groups of drugs I've never fucked with.
But look, the thing is, it's very safe to take, but you don't want to take it regularly because after a while your body adapts to it. It's one of those.
Pretty much like anything.
Yeah.
Okay, but so kind of moving forward, what are some of your favorite ways to meet girls? Tinder, cold approach, day game, night game?
I mean, look, throughout COVID, I mean, online dating has been the thing. But I don't like
all the cool kids.
I always meet. What was that, man?
All the cool kids are doing it.
Yeah, right. I have forever met better quality women in real life. That has always been my favorite way of doing it. I'm a night game guy. I like night. I like bars, clubs. I like that I can go out. People are in a good mood. I can flirt much more hardcore during the nighttime. I can be a lot more cheeky during the nighttime. Things can go well. Anything can happen during the night. And sure, anything can happen during the day too, but anything is more likely to happen during the night. And it suits my personality. I like that by going out at night, I get to switch off during the day. There's a lot to be said about saying, you know what, anytime I see a cute girl, I'm going to talk to her. But for me, after a while, I got to a point where it felt stressful. Like every time I was out, I felt obliged that I should be talking to girls. And what I found was it was really great to pick a time. And this is when I talk to girls. And for the rest, I'm going to chill. I mean, unless something extraordinary happens in my day-to-day life. I found stress-wise, it was much better to just pick a time. And
really? That was like almost becoming stressful for you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to, especially I mean, I've been a coach for 13 years, but yeah, when you start to see yourself as a coach, you make this mistake of thinking, well, I should be doing everything perfectly. I'm not allowed to make mistakes now. So you know what I mean? Like if I don't approach now, I'm a fraud. Really? I started to get a lot of that playing in my head. And I don't know if you ever had that, but I certainly did. And that became stressful. So I sort of created a demarcation for myself, and yeah, much happier for it.
Interesting. I guess different strokes for different folks. But so let's kind of dial in a night game. What are some like practical tips that you would give to guys who are trying to get good at night game?
Yeah, one of the big ones is, I mean, I guess night or days, getting out consistently, you know, and having some people to go out with. You can do it alone. You can do it alone. I've done it alone, but finding good friends to practice with is key. Like good friends, what I mean by good friends, guys who want to work on this stuff and guys who put mates before dates. In other words, they're not going to fight with each other over the same chick. Like, for fuck's sake, that shouldn't happen. And it happens so often.
Really?
Yeah, not cool, man. Like, I would rather walk away from a hot chick than try to fight with my mate over it. Like, that's bullshit.
I hear those stories. I mean, like that never happens to my group of friends
Mm.
because I guess I don't befriend people who
Mm.
do hoes over bros, as
Mm.
the saying goes. But yeah, I do hear those stories, and they're really dumb. Like the story, I don't know if you're familiar with the story, and I don't know how true it is. This is just what
Mm.
I've heard. I feel like Donald
Mm.
Trump. I'm just hearing things. But with Simple Pickup, the guys from Simple Pickup, they started another company. It was called Jump Cut Academy. And
Mm.
then that guy Jesse had a girlfriend, and then Kong banged her, and that's why the company split up. And that's like a multi-million-dollar company. To me, it's like
Yeah.
you guys have been friends for like a decade, and you're running a multi-million-dollar business over a chick, and you can actually, I'm not going to dox her, but you can see what this girl looks like if you dig deep.
Mm.
She's like a 7.57, like for over, above average girl, but not like a super hottie. You're going to break. So I always found that shit like super crazy.
But that says a lot, I think, about the guys involved. I mean, if the idea of sleeping with a girl is that important to you, that says something about how much your self-esteem is hinged on some of these actions.
Some guys will throw their grandma under a bus to like bang a five. Like, like I've seen like some guys will. They'll do
true,
anything
though.
and everything.
It's true though, and that there's a problem when that happens. That's a serious red flag that anyone should be paying attention to for themselves if they feel like they're going to do that.
Someone said, Alex, you're wrong on the story. I could be. Just let us know in the comments what you think the story is. I did hear the story from multiple sources, but I don't know any of the guys personally, so he definitely could be wrong. I did reach out to Kong to come on for an interview, so it'll be interesting if he comes on. But yeah, let's get back to Nightgame. Yeah. So what are some other big ones?
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, I think this is a big one for me, and I've done this, I think, intuitively since very early on when I was learning this stuff, is I want to have fun. And my entire motive, I was really lucky, the guys that I used to head out with, right?
Dating coaches just want to have fun.
Yeah, right. No, but I mean, that's the thing. The guys I used to head out with, we would go out and our goal was to us have fun. And if we picked up girls too, sweet. Right. Yeah. And so half of what we do was just stuff that kept us entertained and may have turned some girls off. Like we would, I don't know, we'd be at a bar and we'd be sitting somewhere and like, I don't know, we'd like start putting straws together, and then we'd see a cute girl, we'd like put the straws over her shoulder and pretend like we're going to steal some of her champagne, or just random silly stuff like that, stuff that would make us giggle. Or we'd both go in and talk to a girl together and I'd be like, hey, I'm Damian and this is Michael. Don't worry about Michael. He's got a really bad stutter, but he's really nice when you get to know him. So now for the rest of the interaction, he has to talk with a stutter. Just silly stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
me and my friends do that shit all the time.
Right. But what that taught me was that me having fun is the most important thing about going out, and even if you're talking to girls. And it detached me from a very early point in time from trying to entertain her. And I think that's the mistake a lot of guys make, is they go, how do I make her laugh? How do I make girls laugh? How do I make her have fun? Fuck that. You've got to have fun. If you're genuinely having fun, enjoying yourself, enough women will want to be part of that energy. Because you're not trying to impress every chick. You're trying to impress girls who you're going to be a good match for. And if you're having fun, yeah, people want to be around guys who know how to entertain themselves. And that's a big one that I've learned. And I think it's a big one that I see a lot of guys a mistake making when they first get into it.
Let me just kind of comment on that. So going back to, are you familiar with Julian's early product Pimp?
No, I haven't.
That's one of my favorite products by RSD. I'm not a big RSD fan, but I'm a big fan of that product because I think he got a lot of things right. I think he got internal game, in my opinion, 95% down. External game, he got maybe like 60, 70% down. Very impressive because it's an early product. But what he says is there's 4 tenets of inner game. Self-amused, grounded, purposeful, and controlled. And he elaborates on these points. So let's kind of go to the first point, is self-amused, right? Like you can have fun. But he does make a good point, which I agree with, is that just being self-amused, like just being the guy who's just having fun, even if it's genuine fun, you're not trying to impress anybody, is not enough. It's really not, because you see those guys at the party who are like, they're just having fun. Maybe they're drunk, whatever. Maybe they're sober. But I do think you need the other elements as well, the purposeful, and the grounded and the controlled element. Would you agree with that, or?
Yeah, I'd have to think that through, like the implications of that. I mean, at the surface, that sounds like a pretty savvy thing to suggest. Like, it sounds about right in my head. To hear that set out, I like the way that was structured.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. Again, I wish I could take credit for that, but no, that's like I think that Julian really nailed it with that.
mm,
The only one I might add to that is dominant, and that kind of falls into purposeful a little bit.
mm,
So, but that would be the only thing I might add on that. And this is 7 years later, so I think he did
mm.
nail inner game with that.
What does dominant mean to you? That's something that's interesting. That's worth.
That's a good question. What does dominant mean? I would explain it almost as like in control. Like you have a hot, but not controlling, which is different. You're in
Mm,
control of the interaction, and you're in control sexually, right? So the girl can surrender control to you. So the
mm,
girl can be just like in your arms, in your presence, but not physically. Not talking about like literally,
mm.
but figuratively. Like she can almost like relax and just be her inner feminine self because you're so dominant.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've often the way that I express it. I mean, I don't disagree with you, but the way I express it is a little bit different. I've often expressed it as ability to take charge or willingness to take charge,
Mhm. Yeah, I would agree.
because
Yeah.
I guess there are times, like when I look at my interactions, there are times where it doesn't make sense to try to take charge. Like, there are times when I meet a girl and she's tipsy and she's kind of into me and she's a forward kind of chick and she just wants to like start making things happen. I'm not going to take charge. I'm like, hey, honey, you look like you're running this show just well enough. Let you lead this. And it hasn't felt necessary for me
Mhm.
to take charge. And other times it's like, yeah, okay, she likes following here, right? So I'm a willing, and
Well,
a
I would
willing
say
and
that's
able to
you're
take
almost
charge.
like leading from the back, right?
Mm,
As weird as that
yeah,
sounds, like meaning like a good leader doesn't. It's not all push. There can be some elements of pull to it. So you're still
yeah.
creating the situation where she can almost lead and escalate. That's
Mm,
that's how I would say. Again, this is like fairly mute point because we're kind of getting into technicalities. But
yeah.
yeah, I definitely see your point. But going back to night game, what about some like more technical things? Like for example, one thing that I found is a mistake guys commonly make with night game is they're too focused on same night pulls. Same night pulls are
Yes.
great,
Yeah, I'm with you on
but
that one.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, but they're most of your results are not going to come from same night pulls. They're going to come from phone numbers, solid numbers.
Mhm.
And I see sometimes guys have this all or nothing mentality. Like they'll be with a girl, it's going good, looks like it's going good, and then for whatever reason they're like you see them 20 minutes later, yo, how'd it go, man? Looks like she
Mm.
was on. Yeah, whatever. She was with her friends. Oh, cool. So you got her number? Nah, man, she wasn't pullable. Yeah, tonight, but she would be pullable tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's like one of the big ones that I've personally seen.
I'm huge on that. In fact, it's interesting because I haven't talked to anyone else who isn't emphatic about it, but I'm massively, because that's the thing. I mean, if I go out on a Friday night, right? I'm out in a night, I can do one or two things. I can really work hard to find a girl to pull home, and not every night, but a lot of nights I could be successful at that. Or I can get, let's say, three really solid numbers from good, long, solid interactions. They're
Mhm.
very likely to convert over the next week. What's a better use of my evening?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I would say
not to mention, it is easier to get a solid date and turn that into something casual than to get a one night stand. Like your conversion rate will be higher. It doesn't matter who you are. You're always going to convert better. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I feel like going for one, like making that your primary goal, one night stands, is almost, it's only useful if grandstanding is your primary motive.
I like that word grandstanding. That's not commonly used in America, but yeah, I like that book. Uh, I read a lot of like vampire erotica. Fun little fact, and that's like a word they use a lot.
All
Grandstanding.
right.
Um, yeah. What are some other big ones besides that one? What do you feel? What do you say?
Yeah, let me think. What are some other the big ones that I sort of really pick on with the night times? Um, I mean, look,
I would say one that just comes to top of my head is guys thinking that they have to go to clubs to game, that it's clubs or nothing. And I just think that that game is actually even better at like a lounge or bar. I don't think clubs are ideal for game. And I think there's
oh,
this dumb misconception in
mm,
the pickup community that you have to go to clubs, which is just so not true.
it's funny. I took that as a given, actually. But yeah, I agree with you. I would hate to go to a club, like a nightclub where it's loud and I can't hear shit. Like,
Yeah,
ow,
yeah, yeah,
because I'm used to using my intellect and banter and all the other things to attract a
yeah.
woman. that's what I lean on. So I lose those skills when I'm in a loud club. So yeah, I mean, I definitely concur. What I was going to say before was around a lot of. I've had a lot of debate around banter and making things sexual, because I hear some guys saying that, you know, you should never banter when you're being sexual because you break sexual tension, right? You're breaking some sexual tension that could be creating. But what I've always found is that, especially in the early stages of an interaction, because right in the beginning of an interaction, you are creating a frame. Who is this guy? What is this interaction going to be about? And if some of my jokes, some of my teasing, some of my stuff is playfully sexual, I'm setting a stage for later on, you know, because if I've done that early on, then I can go and I can have a really great, like, almost a D&M with her, which is something that I do that I don't necessarily recommend everyone does, but I tend to have these really deep conversations and connect, and then I switch back to being sexual, and that's my personal style. It's not what I have to get all my clients to do. But yeah, I find that's really important early on. If you can banter and you can get that sexual playfulness out early, it is then less awkward to be sexual later on. And that's what guys struggle with. They come in and they're too nice and they're too sweet. And then when they have to sexually escalate, it's weird, because now what they're doing is changing personality, right? They presented themselves as X and now they want to be Y, and they struggle with that transition.
Sure. That would be a hard transition for anyone. I would say, in terms of should you banter, should you be sexual, I always say you don't want to be one-dimensional, because the one-dimensional, for maybe just to get laid, like if you're gonna fuck the girl in the club, it's fine. But for non-flaky numbers, when a girl sees you as one-dimensional, it's easier for her to dismiss you. So you want to be the guy that can banter and be sexual, right? So I would say, again, you need to be multi-dimensional. Let me just quickly add something, because I have to correct this. John Anthony swears by same-night pulls. No, he doesn't. He actually talks about how phone numbers are highly underrated, and most of his results come from phone numbers and not from same-night pulls. Just to correct that. Okay, let's keep going. Yeah, so what do you think about the whole multi-dimensional thing? Like, you can't be one-dimensional.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I agree. Again, it's almost one of those things that's funny. Like 13 years on, I almost take it as a given, of course. But no, you're absolutely right. It's not a given. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. It's not a given at all that's what you're supposed to do. But it's true. I know that. I guess what I tell guys when I'm coaching them is, you need to be able to do two things, and one is have fun and make her laugh, and the other one is to actually connect with her on a serious level. You know,
that's interesting.
Even if you don't make things sexual, you're still going to get dates, even if you don't make things sexual, right? Unless you come across as too eager to please and too nice and all the rest, you're still going to get some dates. It'd be ideal if you bring sexuality in. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, even without it, those two things get you 80% of the way there, in my experience. Which I suppose is just my way of saying something very similar, right? You've got to show that you're not just the fun guy. You're not just the serious guy. You know, you got stuff going on.
Yeah, I think the connection thing might be one area where you and I disagree. And so I found that there's, generally speaking, if I'm being overly broad, two types of game: attraction game and connection game. I almost hate using like the technical PUA lingo, but that's the best way to explain it. And one is not necessarily better than the other. They're just different, and different people do different things better. Like me personally, my game is like 99% attraction game. There's very little connection game, because I'm actually really bad at connecting with people unless I know them really well and I trust them. That's like I guess an issue I have. I have to like really get to know someone before I become vulnerable and I trust them and I can really connect with them. So my game is primarily attraction based. I do really good with it, but I also know people whose game is primarily connection based. They're really good at forming connections and being vulnerable. And again, it's like one's not better than the other. I think you can do both, either or, and be successful with it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. There is absolutely no reason you can't focus on the attraction as opposed to the connection. And I've seen that. I mean, I've seen guys who do that successfully. You know, the stereotype guy at the club who picks up hot chicks is generally more of an attraction guy than a connection guy. And that's true. Like, we are opposite ends of the spectrum, I think, to some degree on that. Like,
which is what makes the conversation more interesting, because then we can like find overlaps. Another thing that I would say with Nightgame is I see guys wasting way too much time on the wrong kind of girls and not screening it. The poor time management actually is the best way I can explain it.
Yeah.
But spending half an hour talking to a girl who has a boyfriend, trying to convince her. A girl who has a boyfriend, a girl who, if she tells you she has a boyfriend, is generally speaking low probability. And if there's no other girl there, then okay, I can see the point. But there's a bunch of other girls there. They're going to spend half an hour on the boyfriend girl and ignoring the 5 single girls who are there. So I see very poor time management. This is something that I learned from doing sales, is that you have to make good use of your time. Like I'm doing door-to-door sales. I can spend half an hour convincing old grandma, to do this, or I can just knock on 20 other doors and get 5 of them to buy. What's a better use of my time? So I see poor time management as a big issue.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when I'm out in the bar, I always tell guys what they'll see me doing is I'll have like 4 interactions that are like 5 minutes or less. Right. And it's not because I'm getting blown out. It's because I'm walking away because, if I'm out to meet a certain kind of girl, I know what I want from the right kind of girl, and I'm going in there. And if she's not really what I'm looking for, I'm very ready to walk away. And the irony is when you're willing to walk away because you are screening, women feel that and they want you more too, because they sense that they didn't have you at hello. Right. It's like guys often think that women have all the power in the interactions, and this kind of gets to me because they only have the power if you give them the power, right? If you give away your power, right? If I approach a woman, I had the power to approach her. She didn't have the power to approach me. So I got to choose, for starters. And then I approached, and then I'm here because you're cute, but I'm only going to stay because there's something else happening here, right? And when women feel that, they feel like, well, I'm here, and now is her chance to shine. Will she shine or not for me? When will they feel that, as opposed to I'm here and now please like me, which is what I think, too many guys do. And that's what leads to that problem, because they just don't. Yeah, you call it time management. For me, it's screening. It's the same thing. It's knowing clearly what I want. And it's one of the things that I get guys. It's not usually a thing I get guys to do in the beginning, because I just want guys to, when they start out, I just want guys to get experience and get social practice, even if she's got a boyfriend, whatever. Just get practice flirting and talking. But yeah, when guys have been out for a little while, that's exactly what I tell them to do. I'm like, tonight is all about screening. For every girl, what do you want? 5 things. Great. If she doesn't have them, you must walk away. Right. And if she does have one of them and you stay, then I'm gonna send you in to talk to a tranny or something for your next interaction, because that's a punishment, because you've got
a tranny.
Well, just as like it's more a joke than anything, but it's like punishment for
you. Got to blow the tranny.
You got to follow these steps,
dick, Johnny,
or else. Yeah, but it is liberating, because once women feel like, okay, you're not hanging around just because she's cute, you're not powerless. She hasn't got all the power. In an ideal situation, you both have the power, I think, to walk away.
Yeah,
neither person's given.
You definitely both have the power to walk away. I do think that if you're approaching, whoever's the one that's being approached starts off having the power, but that power is fluid. It can move. And there are ways to maintain, to kind of get some of that power back. But I do think, for example, if you're like a celebrity and girls are approaching you, you start off by having the power. Now you can fuck it up and they can have the power. But I do think there's like, you are kind of in, again, that's part of the game, but you are in a position where you're the one that's approaching the girl. Thus, she's a little bit of initial power position. But again, there's a lot, for example, like let's to kind of break this down. Let's say there's a girl standing by the bar. I approach her, right? She does have the power because I came up to her, right? But then let's say, for example, I'm not needy, I'm fun, and let's say I sit down in the bar stool, right? And she's standing over me. Well, then I position myself. I've slowly gotten some of that power back. And I guess game is, on some level about, having power, right? And again, not in a weird way to manipulate girls, but it is a little bit. That's why I'm such a big fan of books like Game of Thrones, because it's just like the power dynamics there. I just find it so fascinating how like it interplays and how it all flows.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always shy away from the concept of power in interpersonal dynamics, because yes, you can certainly argue that there is power at play, right? But I mean, the argument is certainly there. Why I shy away from it is because I feel like an awareness of that does not serve you. So when I focus on, am I choosing? Am I selecting? Am I looking after my wants and needs? Am I going for what I want? Am I doing these things? Then I'm always empowered, right? Regardless of what's happening socially, dynamically, you know, the second she's behaving in a way that she's trying to play games and do things, I will start to detach because I'm still have 100% responsibility, or I'm 100% empowered for how I react to the things that happen around me. And so it's a different way of looking at it. And I often, yeah, I can see why people think about the power dynamic in interactions. I just often find it doesn't serve me because what I see too often is people becoming a bit, not you, but I see it's too easy for people to become neurotic about power, and who has the power and who doesn't have the power, instead of being like, it sounds wanky to say I'm empowered, but literally, like, I am going to.
I definitely see your point. I agree with your
know?
point. Yeah, I can definitely see it. If you are too OCD about it, like being a detriment, because then you're just like paranoid about it.
I mean, you must have had clients too that
let me get a little bit more power from you before this conversation continues.
No, but like they'll say, "Oh my god, I just gave away all my power by kissing her on the cheek first." Like,
you know,
I think, no, you did not. That's how this
it's one of those things that's interesting in hindsight, but should not be in your mind during the interaction. Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to think of what are some other like big night game issues that are commonly pop up. Anything on top of your head?
Yeah, let me just think for a second. What are the big ones that I mean, there's always the things that I pick on with guys when I'm sending them in to talk to girls, and
or just, I guess, just in general from doing coaching. You say you've been doing for like 13 years. What are like some of the most common issues guys have?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned in the beginning. I mean, one of the big ones is guys try to mask being nervous and shy, and very often what happens when guys mask it is then they look creepy, because what happens is their face is like they're not expressing anymore because they're so busy trying to mask the nervous sensations they're having that their face becomes very serious. And I regularly see the attempt to look confident when you're feeling shit scared look creepy instead. And I see guys getting blown out all the time for being creepy and only occasionally for being nervous. You know what I mean? Like, creepy will blow you out 100% of the time. Bit nervous is forgivable a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time. And that's one of the ones that, especially during the daytime, I've found too, during the day, I can't be too confident. If I'm too confident, women are like, they don't trust me. During the day, I've found way better served to just be super humble and super chill compared to night game. Like, that was a big shift that I had to make when I left night and went out and talked to women during the day. I had to drop some of the bravado from the night. That was a big one for me, actually.
Interesting.
The other thing that I found, go on.
I was going to say, one of the big things I see is guys improperly diagnosing their issues. I see this all the time with my coaching clients. Like, guys will be like, "Yeah, man, it's my photos are great, just my text game, dude. Like, you gotta help me with my text game, dude. My photos are on point." I'll be like, "Okay, well, how many matches are you getting a day?" Like 1 or 2. I'm like, "Your photos are not on point. Then you live in a city with 10 million people. You're getting 1 or 2 likes a day. Like, so just like your texting is actually pretty decent. You have way too few leads coming in." I see this like time and time again. Guys like just like misdiagnosing their issues. And focusing on the wrong things. I
want to take that one step further, actually, again. And I want to say one of the big ones that I see cropping up a lot. Actually, I see a lot in comments, like on my YouTube as well and stuff, is a lot of guys are trapped externalizing their problems. Because there are problems in the world that make it harder. Man, I'm thinning. My hair is badly thinning at the back, and I'm 5'8". Okay, I'm white. That's good. But my point is that a lot of guys, they externalize the problems. They say no women want to date me because I'm 5'8". Right? Or guys will say, "Oh, my hair's thinning badly, so what can I do?" Or guys will say, I'm black, and so girls don't like black guys. So what are you going to do? And you're like, well, hold up. Okay. Yeah. There are things that make us less attractive or more attractive. Like, these things exist. Looks matter. All these things, they play a role. The difficulty is that it's too easy to externalize these things as the source of all your problems. It's this dangerous cycle that I see a lot of guys getting into, where they blame everything on, everything on those whatever those things.
Well, that's basically the premise of the blackpill community.
Mm.
You know what's interesting? At the blackpill community, they say, don't look at outliers because I can whatever they say, like, oh, if you're not this guy, that you don't get laid. I'm like, okay, I know countless examples of guys who are not this would get laid, but like, yeah, but they're outliers. Don't look at outliers. But I don't know, like, why would you not want to look at outliers?
But
Like,
that's how science works, right? There are no black swans until you find a black swan, and now some swan's going to be black. Like that's how science works. Science is like we test a thing, and then if we can find a false result, it's falsifiable. Therefore, science needs to be better understood. That's how science literally works. Is you look for the outliers.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just more like that. It's like, yeah, but that guy's not the average. Sure, you might be right, but like, I'm just thinking, like, let's say, God forbid, I have like like some crazy medical problem, right? Like, let's say I have a certain type of cancer. Okay, I'll use a personal story. Like, my aunt, she had pancreatic cancer. That's a 5% survival rate. At least it was at the time when I researched it, like 6 years ago, right? But my aunt wasn't like, oh, 5%, I'm going to die. Statistically speaking, I'm going to die. She was like, no, I want to be that part of that 5%. I want to be the outlier. And, God bless her. She was the outlier. Like, she's still alive and, well, and like, that's awesome. But I'm just saying, like, that's an extreme example, but she wanted to be that outlier. And I just take it back. Like, let's say, 95% of guys under 5'3" suck and 5% are good. You want to be part of that 5%. Like, who says that you can't be? Like, find out what that 5% are doing and try to, mimic that. So, yeah, I'm not a fan of like defeatism or any of that.
I think it's also a problem with understanding how statistics work. It's a thing, it's a thing that Jordan Peterson often struggles with.
Guys, just real quick to comment on this. He did not get banned. I muted him for 5 minutes because he was going crazy in the comments. I feel like he needs a little chill. I don't ban people from the streams.
Yeah, so it's a thing that Jordan Peterson mentions as well, right? Is when you've got normal distribution. So when people look at that, because it's worth mentioning, because I think a lot of people have this feeling, but when you've got like men are only actually marginally more violent than women, but
really?
but that's the average. It's at the outlier that when men on average are only 5% more something, 10% more something. It's when the outliers, the really extreme end is almost all men. That's how it works when you have a normal distribution. And that's the same thing applies, right? It's these people are outliers, but they're not necessarily, to be an outlier doesn't mean you have to be hundreds of times more exceptional than the normal. You only have to be marginally more exceptional, and suddenly you're now an outlier. And I think it's that understanding of that's how these normal curves, work. Yeah, it's hard. It's easy for us. It's easy when you're a coach and you work with so many men, and you see men with all different kinds of shortcomings. I mean, race shouldn't be a shortcoming, but it can play a role. Some races get judged more unfairly than others. That's a real thing. And so it's easy to have these guys with different shortcomings and do really well. Like the really big example we have in Australia is if I have an Indian client, right, who's relatively new out of India, and I have a Sri Lankan client who's relatively new out of Sri Lanka, no one's going to spot the difference between them on site, right? The same genetic background, basically. And yet the Sri Lankan guys will have a really easy time of it on the whole.
Really?
And the Indian guys will struggle.
Really? That's fascinating. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So what it is, and of course this is talking in stereotypes. I've got to flag that. It's just this is the
I used to actually hook up with a Sri Lankan girl for like a year or so. This is very interesting.
Yeah, right. Well, and so what you have is in Sri Lankan culture, in Indian culture, boys and girls are separated a lot more. Men and women are separated a lot more. There's a lot more separation. And what's more is young boys are horrifically under-socialized compared to Western cultures, right? And so they become adults who then go out and their social skills are horribly lacking, right? And so you've got that. Then you've got a culture, a flirting, dating culture that is radically different to ours. And that's why in Australia, there's quite a negative stereotype around Indian men, because it's quite a clash with how women want to be interacted with, right? So a lot of women have really negative experiences with Indian guys. That's why you have that negative stereotype. But Sri Lankan guys look the same, but their culture is very different. Their culture is a lot more simpatico with Western culture when it comes to dating. It's different, but it's a lot more compatible. And so what you get is guys who are already more heavily socialized. They're more used to talking to girls, being around girls. You know, it's much easier to say he's just a guy who happens to be Indian, who happens to be brown, right? Rather than culturally he's an Indian. And it's amazing. It's incredible. And it's difficult because I get all these guys who are Indian guys saying it's because I'm Indian, you know, or it's because I'm brown, it's because I'm, you know, dark skinned. Women judge me straight away. Like, there's more to this story than just that, because Sri Lankan guys will get judged the same way, but they somehow bust through it. And so you get that, you know, it's too easy to blame it. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't hurt, doesn't make it harder. Me balding, me having thin hair makes it harder. Me being 5'8" makes it harder. These things are difficult too. If I then added on, which I'm not, but if I were overweight, right? I work out regularly, I stay in shape. But if I was overweight, that would make it another step harder again, right? So I just focus on what I can control. I dress well, I smell good, I'm you know, take care of the way I look, I'm healthy. I focus on what I can control, and by focusing on what I can control, I feel empowered, and I feel like I have confidence in who I am, and I like who I am. I've got some things that aren't ideal, but fuck it, you know, I'm good enough.
Yeah,
you know,
just kind of quick to very quickly go back on this. I remember the Sri Lankan girl I used to hook up with. She used to, when she was growing up, she had an elephant. I just found that so badass.
That is
she's like, I was like, yo, that's badass. She's like, yeah, it's fairly common in Sri Lanka. I was like, holy shit, like that's so badass. You guys just fucking have an elephant growing up. Like, we have a dog, you have an elephant. If I was a good person, I had an elephant growing up, I'd be like, yo, woman, you want to come back and meet my elephant? I'm like, what do you do with the elephant? She's like, I don't know, just go out there and feed him like fucking branches and trees and shit. I'm like, oh my God, that's like my dream right there. I want to have a fucking elephant in Miami. That's when I know I'll beat it, when I have an elephant in the backyard. Like, imagine you guys see me doing this podcast. There's like an elephant walking around. I'm like, oh, chill out, Dumbo. I'm fucking doing a podcast. But yeah, that's complete aside. I'm trying to think. Yeah, so I think we covered a lot of day game, night game. What do you think about this whole red pill movement that's happening?
Yeah, I've got my thoughts on red pill. First of all, I don't judge anyone who's part of red pill or MGTOW or black pill, or I don't judge, because what's happening is I see it as being people in pain trying to manage, trying to get by. But my concern with red pill. So if you're familiar with attachment styles, basically you may be, but for those watching, essentially growing up, we learn different ways of relating to love and affection, and two very common things is what's called an avoidant and an anxious attachment style. So basically, you know, when you meet someone you start to really like, do you take a step back because you don't want to get too close to someone, and if they start trying to get closer to you, that freaks you out a little bit? Or are you the flip side, and when you start to really like someone, you start to really want to get needy and try to cling to them and hold on? Different ways of relating to love. And what I find is that if we grow up being both versions of this attachment style are related to insecurity. It's how we deal with being insecure around love and attachment, and our value in any loving relationship, be it platonic or romantic. And so what I see is a lot of guys. So myself, when I was younger, I was anxiously attached. That means I was, if anything, needy. I want to cling and hang on and like, don't leave me. That was my relationship to love and affection when I was a younger guy. And that puts you in a situation which a lot of red pill guys started out as, with women walking all over you, treating you like rubbish, you putting up with it, you being resentful, you being used for your money, you being used for your time or your energy, your effort, whatever it is, and just feeling like trash and rubbish. One way of coping with that and feeling empowered is to go, well, fuck it. From now on, I'm going to be avoidant. I'm going to adopt avoidant behaviors as a way to empower myself and feel in control around women. And what I feel is that a lot of not all, but a lot of red pill thinking is avoidantly attached coping strategies for anxiety around attachment. You know, things like spinning plates. We've always got to keep other girls around the edges, right? To keep her, because that's pushing her to be anxiously attached to you, because she knows he could run away at any minute. Better get her to hold on. It's a control strategy. It's an avoidant control strategy. And it's not healthy. This is not how we would create a deep intimacy with another human being. It is how we would keep someone on the hook and feel empowered. But I don't think it's empowering. And so it's not that everything about red pill is bad or rubbish, but I think it is guided a lot by the empowerment one feels when you become avoidant rather than anxiously attached. And I think you want to be securely attached, which is the healthy space that you're trying to go for. And so that's my thinking around red pill. I'm not sure if that's the answer you were hoping to get, or not, but that's
No, I mean,
how
well,
feel
there's
about
no
it.
answer I'm hoping to get. You know, I don't ask leading questions. Well, maybe sometimes I do, but not often. My kind of thinking, and I don't think our philosophies are mutually exclusive. I just think maybe they kind of go together. I think when the pendulum swings far one way, you always have pushback. You see this with politics, right? Every years goes from conservative to liberal to conservative. You see this with culture. You see this with everything. And I think for a while, the perspective on dating and women has been women are right, you know, blah blah blah. It's been very like social justice warrior-y. That's been what's been going on for the last 10 years. And that, in my opinion, that's the pendulum swinging too far in this direction. And the red pill is just the pendulum swinging too far in the other direction, saying no, like, you know, fucking men have it so hard, you know, like you know, men get fucked over, blah blah blah. And there's elements of truth too there, but I just think, again, as always, the truth lies somewhere in the middle, and you need kind of like a nuanced view. But I just see it as, again, like the pendulum swinging too far in the other direction as a result of the current culture that's been going on. I think that if the social justice warrior type of feminazi culture didn't happen, then there would be no red pill.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I 100% agree with the pendulum concept as well. It's why I don't freak out about it. I think we're just trying to find balance. But yeah, I mean, I think the fact that red pill, MGTOW, black pill, I think the fact that incel, all these communities exist of men, no one's paying enough attention to it. No one in power, no one who gets to make decisions is paying enough attention to the fact that these men exist. They are hurting, they're suffering, they're going through something. Whether we do or don't agree with how they're expressing it, they're there. And they have a voice, and something's going on for men. I see it. It's growing. It's getting worse. Something is going on for men. And because the feminist party is so well established that women have a voice if they need a voice with whatever is going on, men aren't getting that voice. If you know what I mean, we don't have a well-established community for it. We have men's rights activism, but even that, it's not as well established, and it doesn't have enough really well-minded people in it. You know, guys like Jordan Peterson don't represent MRA, but he's a good voice in many ways, because at least he's very articulate. You don't have to agree with everything he says, but he argues his point well. He's got his own beliefs, and I respect him. I think it's great. Even though I don't agree with everything he says, he's kind of what men need more of.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson's like very like sexually conservative. Like he's like all about like marriage, and like Jordan Peterson ain't going around and spinning any plates.
No.
That's like, he's not pretending to be. That's not his style. So yeah, it's interesting that he's become associated with like the dating game when he's like, you know, he's like very like, monogamous,
wild, isn't it?
Like kind of like, you know, traditional type of guy.
Because we need a voice like that, and he's the closest thing we've got.
Yeah, at least in the mainstream. Yeah.
True.
Yeah, that's true. I'm trying to think of a better example. Yeah, pretty much. It's fun. It's funny, like all these like weird bedfellows, I guess, is like all these people who actually are not common, who are forced to kind of be in the same, I don't know, party, or I don't know, take the same position, like stranger allies, I guess, that you see this. Yeah, it's interesting. All right, let's take some questions. So going back to the whole Jesse was abusive towards his girlfriend, and he said he was going to, but this is all secondhand. This is something you read on Reddit, so it could be true, could not be true. I don't know. We won't know until we get one of them on the podcast. So let's get them on. All right. Who's the guy? Damian, never heard of him. Seems chill. Is he British? No, he's Australian, correct?
Yeah. No, I got a weird accent because I traveled so much. And then both my parents have accents. And then I went to a school where being white was the minority. So I didn't get the same Australian twang that a lot of Australians have.
Jesse's girlfriend made a post on Reddit explaining the whole situation. Yeah, but that's just her version of the story. Again, maybe it's correct, maybe it's not, but we don't know. I would never fight with Alex for the Polish girl. Wouldn't be. It's like an inside joke. It's funny. Yeah, I'm surprised. Like I had this one. I told the story. It was a video about when I was in Poland. I met this crazy fucking chick who was like, kept calling me, "Not serious, boy. You're not elegant. You're not serious." And that video, people found that very entertaining. To me, it was just like a bad date experience. Okay. Do you have any tips on how to be more confident around girls, people? What would be your take on that?
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of the self-confidence building happens away from people. A lot of your confidence is how you live your life. I think we talked about it to, you know, some degree about how to build self-esteem, how to build confidence. I think a lot of confidence comes from being able to detach from the psychobabble that happens in our heads. You know, if I would have my way, every client that I'd ever work with would meditate regularly, because meditation is a practice of letting thoughts come into your head and then letting them go and focus on the present moment again. You know, one of the things that I often tell guys to do, and it's a cheap trick and it works like 20%, is get into the habit of every now and again when you're out, if you're going to be talking to girls, if you're at a party or whatever, breathe really deeply and just focus on, what are 5 things that I can hear right now? What are 5 things that I can see right now? What are 5 things that I can feel right now? You know, my shoes, my feet in my shoes, the shirt against my arm, the whatever it is, the cool glass on my hand. Doing that type of thing, making yourself present, sounds wanky at the surface of it, but you'll be amazed how powerful it is for, if you do it regularly, getting good at stepping away from the stuff that's going on in the head, because really it's the stuff going in your head that's making you feel unconfident. I think confidence is almost what's left when you ignore that stuff.
Yeah, well said. Does anyone have any advice regarding friendship? A lot of my friends are ghosting on me during. I would just call it out, be like, "Yo, man, you've been kind of ghosting. What's going on?" I would just call it out, you know, in a non-confrontational way. What would you guys do if you're talking to a girl in a group of 2, more than 2, just being very bitchy and difficult on purpose? Probably walk away. Not much you can do. Yeah.
Jinx. Yeah. Alternatively, just before you hit the skip button, when I approach, I'm often aware too that sometimes I'm getting a sign. So because when especially nighttime, I'll approach with a lot of playful banter and stuff. And sometimes when a girl's being bitchy, it can be that she doesn't like me, or it can be that she wants to see how much it matters to me. So I even noticed this because I do a lot of Latin dancing, and I noticed that sometimes I'll dance with girls, new girls.
Oh, dude, you should come to Miami. This is all you're crushing
Miami,
here with the Latin
Miami's
dancing.
heaven for me. But yeah, sometimes I'll dance with a new girl, and she's nice enough, but she's like really, she looks bitchy towards me. She's not being bitchy, she's looking bitchy. And it's 9 times out of 10, she's just trying to suss out if I need her approval or not. And so walk away is usually my thing that I tell guys, but sometimes just changing strategies, like stop joking around and try to actually get to know her, like in a way that demonstrates you don't care, like to have an actual conversation with her. Sometimes just changing, going, okay, she doesn't want to play around and play games, maybe an actual conversation would help. It's an alternative strategy.
Yeah, I just like, if a girl's being bitchy towards me, and it's like I sense it, like I can tell a difference usually between a girl shit testing me and just being a bitch.
Yes.
But the bitching, I'm not gonna like whatever. Like,
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Have a good one. Just walk away. Like I'm done. Like I'm not gonna curse her out. I'm not gonna do any of that. But I'm also not gonna put up with abuse just for the sake of getting laid. What do you think of the natural bars, RSDMax? I never went through the product, so I can't really comment.
Me either.
Yeah, I remember Max. He used to back when we used to have our old Playing with Fire Facebook group. He joined the group, and then he like started like self-promoting, and like I'm like, hey Max, welcome to the group. You know, glad to have you. Just do me a favor, can you please not self-promote? And then just like 2 days later, another self-promotion post. I'm like, all right, banned. Like, I mean, maybe he didn't read my message, but I'm like, okay. Hey, this is a dope collab. Yeah, thank you.
Cheers.
Okay, let's see. More technical. How to get numbers during that game when a girl expect you to stay with them friends the same? Why would she expect you to stay with her the whole night?
If she likes you, I mean, she will want you to. If you don't done a good job,
wanting and expect, like I feel like it's an unreasonable expectation. That would be like I expect Damian to give me his social security number and bank account details after the podcast. like I wouldn't expect that. It would be nice if he did it, but I don't expect it.
But you know, I kind of get. I think what he's talking. I think because if I think about it, I think I have that experience where they look shocked. Wait, you're leaving me? We're getting along so well. Maybe that's what he's talking. And they kind of had that look of like.
Reminds me of like the Seinfeld episode where George. Do you ever see that one where George like he leaves the conversation early because when he makes a good impression? Did you ever see that Seinfeld episode? It's hilarious.
I thought I'd seen them all. I just don't remember it.
This is the one where George discovers the trick to like success with social stuff is just like leaving early, leaving on a high note.
Oh, right. I remember when he does the opposite of everything he would normally do.
That's a different one, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think that could be. I think that could be what he's talking about, is when girls have that look. And the answer is nothing. You just ask for a number as usual, and you just say, like, I don't want to be that guy who just ditches his friends the whole night for a girl. But I'm really glad I met you, and let's catch up soon. What's your number? You know, if that's the situation you're talking about, that's how I would respond.
Yeah, I mean, I would just be like, yeah, I have plans, but we'll hang out another night. Like, almost that could almost work in your favor, because the girl's like, oh shit, I have to like meet up with them again if I want more of them. So I can see that.
Oh, maybe one more thing, just on that note, I very much push for quality, not quantity, on a night out. If the only reason now this is not what you should do, but the only reason I generally leave interactions with girls is if there's nowhere else for the interaction to go to keep, because to me, an interaction needs to keep moving forwards, right? You're either getting more physically intimate or emotionally intimate. And if you've reached a point where you can't really go any further for that night, for whatever reason, that's when I would bail. So yeah, sometimes I go out and I just talk to the one girl the whole night. I mean, I only need to sleep with one girl a night. Yeah, it's an alternative way of looking at it.
I already like Alex and PWF, but oh, thank you. But I'm new to John Anthony, and I like Alex in quotes this John Anthony. I like to improve my day-night game. His YouTube channel is solid, or his things are from his products. In my opinion, yes, it's very solid. And I met him personally, and I think his game is very good. But again, that's just my opinion. Are you familiar with John?
No, I'm one of the worst people to ask about dating coaches, because I pretty much don't follow anyone. I've sort of disconnected from that field. Like, I do all my research from like literature, research, actual scientific literature, research, psychology papers, that kind of stuff. That's where a lot of
You're telling me you don't prescribe to bro science?
No,
bro science is the highest form of science.
Except for, who I love is Mark Manson. I think he's fantastic.
Mark Manson. He wrote the book. He wrote that book, Models, right?
Yeah, Models. I didn't read it for the longest time because I thought it was a wanky name. But that is the book I'd write if I could write another book today. That'd be like that book.
It's a very, very good beginner book. Like, if you're
it's an game book.
Starting out into game, perfect book. I don't think it's like advanced, but yeah,
no, it's not.
But yeah, I actually want to get him on the podcast too. I think he's an interesting guy. I met a girl at a convention. We hang out, and I got her number, and she wants to meet again. But in 3 months for another convention, she lives for far hours, but texts like once a day. Is there interest? Maybe not. The location thing is the most difficult one. Far hours. I would see if you can get her out earlier. Invite her to, I don't know, come for the night. You probably would need to do a phone call or two, lock it in, and then get her, see if she can come for the day or for the evening. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I'd be doing voice messages too.
Yeah,
I find that helps to hook them in better when you've got that time difference.
Alex, check your email after the show. One-on-one coaching things. Yep, we'll do. I always get like behind on the coaching requests. Playing with fire. It would be nice to hear your opinion on how to maintain warm some number 10 passport when you still are in the city but match with girls. Well, I actually have a video on this, but I don't really do too much of maintaining warm stuff, because I just I've traveled around a lot, and I just don't have the time to maintain all those contacts. That would be like way too much texting every day. I just if I go back to that city, I can just like meet new girls. I'll hit up again. I'll do suboptimal game. I'll hit up that girl after a year of not talking to her, and most of the time she won't respond, but sometimes they will. And I'll take that chance rather than text her for a year. Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm sad because I haven't gotten a girl number in years, so this was the first time maybe so I can get more. Yeah, so I think that's the issue, right? You haven't gotten a girl's number in years. I think that you need to go out and get more phone numbers, because then you're going to get one-itis. I just released a TikTok video on this today. You don't want to attach to one girl. You want to have options. I don't know. What do you think about this, Damian?
Yeah, I mean, that's always the danger, when you have so few options. If I met a girl who I wasn't going to see for months, my interest level in her would be very low. And that's in a sense of looking after me, right? I'm not trying to show off. I just mean, if you were looking after you 100%, you would have to low prioritize her, because it's a difficult relationship to get started. But I know how you feel, because you kind of only got that one option. But I think that the idea is look at this as a practice experience rather than something that will likely convert. Just from a framing perspective, I think it'll feel better regardless of what happens then.
Yeah. I would say get on Tinder, get on Bumble, get on Hinge, do cold approach, day game, night game. Like try to just diversify your lead sources so you get more girls coming in the funnel. Have a date tonight with a new lead. How to frame rotation. Should I go direct and ask what she's looking for and just be forward? I would only ever do that after sex, like after you hook up with her. I would just say, like, cuddle with her, be like, yeah, I want to see you again, and just invite her over and just have sex with her again. I don't think you need to explicitly say, okay, I want to lock you in for a rotation. I would I would just like keep hooking up with her. I don't think there's anything explicitly you need to do.
I usually I've got a way that I go about this.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Because it just becomes a thing. So what I usually do is I usually have a way of framing where I'm at that doesn't click her red flags. When I'm trying to express I don't want to date seriously right now, right? And so that it's okay, so that it becomes natural after we hook up that she isn't going to assume that this is going to become a relationship, because that's often part of the issue, right? So what I'll do is I'll just say, you know what, I'm really loving being single right now. So this is when I'm flirting with her, right? Usually the first time I meet her, I'll say, I'm really loving being single right now. I get to be selfish. I get to focus on my career, on my job. I'm doing a lot of self-improvement, and like it's amazing because I don't have to worry about someone else's emotions and feelings. It's such a good point in my life right now. Now I have that conversation while I'm flirting with her, and that lets women know I don't want a relationship. And so when we do hook up, that is already then a given that this isn't going to be a committed thing.
Yeah, guys, just let's keep the discussion in the comments like kind of on point. I appreciate all the John Anthony questions, but I think those are better suited towards him because again, like I'm friends with him, yes, but I'm not in his mind. So let's just like kind of keep this somewhat on point. Like, it doesn't have to be completely on point, but let's just keep it like at least 20% on point. Because I feel like there's some weird tangents in the comments, and then I miss the questions that I need to get to. People talking about like different types of Indians and shit. Okay, let's take this question. If I feel lost with the quality of my love life, do you think it's beneficial to take a few months off to focus on my own emotions, myself, or should I be gaming girls the whole time to get better? What's your take on it?
Yeah, my take is sometimes exactly the right thing is to drop women for a while, especially when you feel like, if you feel like you've started to become a little bit dependent on it, either to feel better or a form of validation. Or the difficulty with women is there's a lot of self-judgment and self-shame, I think, around women. And so when you're trying to do self-development, not for everyone, but for a lot of guys. And so sometimes when you're trying to work on yourself and sort your own shit out, women only complicate that process. And I think there's a lot to be said from taking a few months back, building yourself up, dealing with some of your own shit and taking a step back in. I've done that multiple times in my life, and I'm sure I will do it multiple times in the future. It's a very healthy process to go through. That's my thinking.
Yeah, I think it depends on the person. I find it easier to quote unquote take time off game when I have a consistent booty call or something like that. So yeah, I just like sex. But yeah, I think it depends on the person. Took your advice, got less likes on Tinder, and got less likes on Tinder. Oh, that's not good. But I took my female friend's advice and got more. I appreciate your advice regardless. But do you think girls know more? If so, add female. Yeah, I do. Actually, quite often when I'm stuck on a client, I'll have a few girls I know give their perspective. I do think they know more in a way, again, because I'm not a gay guy. So I've just basically through years of coaching trained myself to look at it through the same lens as a girl, but I'm not perfect. Which is funny because right now we're creating an app. It's going to use artificial intelligence to tell you which photos are good. And we're using girls to program the AI. It's not going to be based off my own mind. It's going to be based off, the female's mind. So, yeah, I do definitely think they know more.
I think it's an interesting question. And yeah, I agree with you on the whole. But it's interesting. You have to ask the right girls. That's often the issue.
Yes. Yes.
Because the reason when I'm coaching guys with their online dating, I recognize when there's a question mark and I need to ask a woman. There's some photos you're like, that's definitely a bad photo. You shouldn't be using that, period. Other times it's like, this could really work or it could trigger women. I've got to ask a woman and see if it triggers a red flag or if it really works, because that's often what you're doing with online dating, because they have to make snap judgments. And so sometimes it's just really obvious, you know, which snap judgment they're going to make. And other times, yeah, it really helps to bring a woman in. But again, it's one of those things. Not all women are capable of giving high quality advice and feedback.
Yes, the girl has to be the girl has to be self-aware.
Definitely.
She has to have a high level of self-awareness. Follow up: downside of asking a girl from work volunteer, where if they reject, you'll be awkward for maybe not after. Then, yeah, there's an element of that. Like, don't shit where you eat. I kind of agree with that.
I've always lived by that too, actually. Except like when it was a temp and stuff like that, but otherwise, not. I avoided it where I worked.
Is Damian currently stuck in Australia and the tyrannical lockdowns that entails? Is there tyrannical lockdowns in Australia?
In Sydney. Yeah, but I'm not in Sydney. My company's in Sydney, so I'm getting screwed a bit financially. But no, I'm in Queensland, where we just don't have COVID, really. Which has been fantastic. So the borders are all locked down, but my life is as usual. I go out and
what's lockdown?
Salsa dancing. Lockdown where no one's allowed to cross the border. And in Sydney, no one's allowed to leave. No one's allowed to go anywhere or do anything for like 3 months already. Or
That's
4 months.
crazy.
It's intense. Yeah, we're getting like 1,500 new cases a day. There.
Yeah. People are like obsessed with COVID. The whole world just lost its shit.
Yeah, it's a bit wild.
Did you find a girl boiled when she heard my red pill guru told me to never take a woman's advice? LOL. I really like Damian's advice on how to make her understand that you don't want a serious relationship. I'm curious to hear if you ever found a girl who didn't want to hook up when you said that.
Yes. I've said that before and had girls kind of step back, or not step back physically, but I mean, as in they start to detach themselves from the interaction. And that's totally cool. The reason why I like that is because I don't want to get caught with a girl who wants to be in a relationship. I don't want to be in that position. There's more than enough women in the world who are happy to just take it easy for now, that I don't need to get caught up with the complicated ones. And it's good because if you just say to a woman, well, you know what, right now I just want to hook up with girls and have fun. If you say that, that is then a red flag. Because that it's an interesting one. Even women who want to hook up, a lot of them still want to be treated with, like, they want intimacy, just not relationship. Right. And so if I just make it sound like I'm just going to fuck you and run away, that's not appealing. That doesn't necessarily give a lot of women what they want. And so that's where me delivering it this way tends to not trigger any red flags.
But don't worry, the herpes will always be with you. Do you feel like red pill men actually black pill, since the motto is only to deal with high interest women, self-improvement now? Yeah, I don't know. Those two communities really don't like each other. The black pill community, I would say, has much more in common with the red pill community, but they hate the red pill community. And so I just find it interesting. I don't really know, to be honest.
There's a lot of overlap.
The lines get blurred, and some people call themselves red pill. They're actually black pill and whatnot. Some people are black pill, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think you should identify with I don't like to identify with any community. I have my own thoughts and my own perspectives.
By the way, just on the topic of that red pill, I just want to clarify. I definitely agree that there is a really unhealthy blue pill of viewing the world. I just because I don't agree with everything in the red pill doesn't mean I definitely think there is some serious errors in the way that we are teaching men to relate to their masculinity that exists in the world that we're getting wrong, very wrong. So yeah.
I mean, again, even Kevin Ray Wilder makes this point that red pill really just means the truth, right? So the truth, I like the truth, but it's whose interpretation of the truth, which is, I guess, most associated with Rollo Tomasi and those guys. And I would say that a lot of the stuff they say is not the truth. So it's not technically the red pill. So I think the Rollo pill is more accurate than the red. It just gets blurred, and then you can call yourself whatever you want. I can call myself black pill. Doesn't make it true, but I can call myself fucking Alex pill. Whatever. Someone asked, "What's Damian's Laycount?"
Fuck, I'm not sure, man. I'm really not sure. More than 100, less than 1,000.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at. Yeah, I lost count after 30 or 40.
Yeah, I don't. I think actually, if someone knows what the lay count is, I would be. I mean, and it's a high number, I would be a little bit concerned because that means that they're so intense.
You're describing one of my good buddies.
Yeah, you're so intent on keeping that number in your head that yeah.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
tried counting once upon a time when I was at Vipassana doing a 10-day meditation retreat, bored out of my mind. And I was sitting there one night trying to get to sleep. I'm like, I wonder if I can count how many.
Yeah, it's hard. I've tried doing that too.
Hard, yeah.
It's yeah. I mean, I see his point. How it's like, it's a good way of like keeping track. I see both parts of the argument, honestly. But yeah, personally, I don't count. But I would be.
But
curious,
where there's also a danger with lay counts is, yeah, I've got that number, but I've also I'm 10 months out of a 12-year relationship, and then I had a 1-year relationship before that, and an 18-month relationship before that. So that's the thing, right? Like it's like I know guys who are incapable of being in relationships. That's its own problem.
Yeah, for sure. There's more nuance to it than that. It's not black and white. Yeah. Okay, let's take a few more questions. I'm a high school senior and you in America. In my first 2 weeks of school, I hooked up with 2 girls from my classes. Should I slow down and keep going? Enjoy my last? Yeah, well, if you're not having any issues, keep going. I mean, do what you want to do. I mean, I don't know. Their dad's coming and beating you up. If that's not happening, then I don't see an issue.
Yeah.
Damian, does your accent help you with gaming outside of Australia?
Depends where I go. If I go to New York, no one gives a shit where I'm from. If I go to like Washington State, it's like, oh my God, it's Australian. They're cool. Great. But it does help. It does help. If I go to South America, for example, Australia is kind of exciting and a big exotic. There are Australians there, but just not as many. So we stand out. Yeah, people tend to like the accent in a lot of places. I don't know why. I hate the Australian accent, dude. I don't like it at all. But yeah, it does. And I will be honest, I may or may not have hammed up my Australian accent at times to get it to work for me.
Yeah, I would. How do you deal with friends making fun of you for failing with women? Get new friends. Like that's not good friends if they're doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with. Actually, I'm huge on picking the right friends to purify. I think most people are friends by fucking accident, and they need to be friends by choice. Because I'm super picky with who I'm friends with, and my quality of life has improved dramatically.
How do you guys manage not to get any STDs? Well, I've had STDs. I've had chlamydia, but it's very easily treatable. But there's only really one STD that matters, and that's HIV. Well, 1, condoms. That's a big one. 2, avoiding risk groups, like most of the time people get STDs from anal sex, prostitutes, and IV drug use. So if you avoid those 3 risk groups, you minimize the risk by like a significant factor. Furthermore, and this is maybe not politically correct opinion, but I'll just say it, certain STDs are more common in lower socioeconomic groups. So hooking up with middle class and rich girls instead of poor girls, you will also reduce your STD risk. Not to say rich girls don't have STDs, but I'm just saying in general.
Yeah, I mean, all those things are true. It's been interesting. I what have I had in my life? Yeah, chlamydia once. In all that time, I think definitely part of it is the women that I'm flirting with, and picking up. Because for me, when I was younger, when I was really young, early 20s, was a bit different. But after about 23, 24, my choice in women was always, I didn't just have to find you hot. I had to actually really like you. And by doing that, they were always like better quality. It's maybe a crass term to use, but better quality women is who I was meeting. Like more, the heads had the heads more in a better, healthier space, and so they were less likely to be, I guess, disease vectors, I suppose. As well as just wrapping up all the time. And damn it, if a woman gets mad at you because you don't want to use a condom and tries to use the "what are you saying? I've got a disease" line on you, don't fucking fall for it. Like
I've never
how many times I've had that.
I've never had that, really.
I've had that a couple of times in my life, maybe 3-4 times.
You Australians are crazy. You guys got alligators and crocodiles and shit. You guys are living life on the edge.
Everyone's trying to kill us, even the women.
Yeah. Most of the guys who actually worry about STDs are the guys with less than 20 lay count. That's actually so true. So true. From what I've seen. Well, I mean, we got through a good amount of questions. Okay. In which country could I best utilize BBC Game?
Australia?
Which stands for Better British.
Is that what it stands for? Is it?
I don't even know. I'm trying to think of something witty. Well, I would say probably Europe. I would want to say like Scandinavia or Japan. would be my guess.
Australia does pretty well too, actually.
Australia, okay.
Yeah.
Australia.
Hmm.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, Damian. So if guys want to support your work, they want to follow your content, where should they go?
Yeah, guys. I mean, check out my YouTube channel, School of Attraction. That'd be really my first. That's the first way to get to hear more of what I got to say. I think there's a lot of educational stuff there. You know, I have online courses around online dating and dating coaching and stuff, as Alex does. You can check me out, schoolofattraction.com. But I reckon check out my channel first. And if you love what you hear, it's easy enough to find.
Then you sign up for his OnlyFans.
That's where the real stuff happens. Yeah.
Awesome, dude. Good podcast, man. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to connect because I think we have a lot of the same philosophies, even though we've never talked before this. So it's interesting when that happens.
Yeah, I always enjoy these, actually. They're just an interesting conversation, and hopefully people learn from it. So I enjoy them.
Yeah, man. I think we got some good value. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in. We got some awesome videos dropping this week. We got some cool collabs. We got the studio figured out today, so there's going to be awesome things ahead. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and also subscribe to Damian. Show him some support. Check out School of Attraction. Thank you, guys. Until next time.